Good evening and welcome to the Bellevue City Council meeting, Monday, July 14th, 2014. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise. And please remain standing for the invocation by Pastor Dan Wills, Chandler Acres Baptist Church, 27505 Chandler Acres Drive. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for the privilege of serving your people. We thank you for those who have been elected, that they would carry on with the character that you endow them to have. We ask you, Father, to be with each and every one tonight, that wisdom would abound as they prepare to meet. We ask you, Father, that those things that are needed to be taken care of be resolved with mutual understanding and cooperation. We thank you, Father, for the day that you've given us. We thank you for the days ahead as we plan. These things we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Wills. Item 2, Kay, could you please call roll?
Mr. Carmichael.
Here.
Mrs. Saniuk.
Here.
Mr. Cook. Mr. Knutson.
Here.
Mr. Preister.
Here.
Mrs. Blood.
Item 2A, this meeting will be conducted according to the Open Meetings Act, posted in the entry to the council chambers. Item 3, approval of minutes and advisory committee reports. 3A, approval of agenda. Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Second by Councilwoman Saniuk. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 3B, approval of consent agenda. Mr. Preister.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 3C and D is under the consent. 4 also consent. Item number 5, special presentations. 5A, proclamation, Ozone Awareness Month on behalf of MAPPA. Is there someone here with MAPPA? See none, I'll go ahead and read the proclamation here. Whereas ozone acts as a protective layer above the earth, but it can be harmful to breathe, ground-level ozone, also called bad ozone, is produced by industrial facilities and electrical utilities, motor vehicle exhaust, gasoline vapors, and chemical solvents. And whereas ground-level ozone is harmful to humans and the environment, it has been linked to respiratory illness, including asthma and bronchitis, and cardiopulmonary disease, even heart attacks. Long-term exposure to ozone can even cause death. And whereas during the summer months, the Metro Area Planning Agency and the Douglas County Health Department will issue ozone action and ozone alert days when the air quality is moderate to poor and possessed potential health and environmental dangers. And whereas little steps, big impact, improve simple daily steps to improve the air quality in Bellevue, such as refuel your vehicles in the morning or the evening, wash clothes in cold water, and keep the lint filter in the dryer clean. Save energy home with CFL light bulbs and a programmable thermostat. And whereas during the month of July, Metro offers reduced bus fares to encourage commuters to ride the bus. Now therefore, I, Rita Sanders, Mayor for the City of Bellevue, do hereby proclaim July 2014 as Ozone Awareness Month. Item 5B, Bellevue Ministerial Association, request for reimbursement for maintenance costs for the Bellevue Food Pantry. Is there someone here from the Ministerial Association? Could you please come forward?
John Huck, Treasurer of the Bellevue Ministerial Association.
Could you please sign in, Mr. Huck? I believe he has a statement, if you'd like to say a few words, Mr. Huck, and then any questions from the council to follow.
In 2002, the Bellevue Ministerial Association, the BMA, acquired from the Bellevue School District a used school trailer. The total cost was $100. The trailer was for storing donated food supplies. Prior to this time, various church basements were used for that purpose. After being converted by the Sarpy County Habitat for Humanity organization, the trailer was put to use into the parking lot of Emmanuel Lutheran Church, where it still sits. It was quickly noted that there were costs involved with having this trailer, notably insurance, both fire and liability, electricity and a telephone, and maintenance. At that time, the Bellevue City Council approved funding for these expenses from the Betterment Fund. Each year, I've been putting in a budget request. See attachment 1. This year's request is for $3,300. Electricity, which is the highest point, is used for both heating and cooling and lighting. Attachment 2 is the distribution of quarterly funding since the inception of this program. Attachment 3 is a breakdown of our sources of income and expenses. If my projections of income and expenses for the entire 12-month period hold true, we will have income of about $63,000 and expenses of $91,000. Note that only $26.56 of donated funds have been used for non-aid to clients. I'm very proud of that. The major expense is the vouchers we give clients to shop for perishables at local food markets. Attachment 4 is our present value amounts that we issue based on family size. Because of our shortage of funds, we're going to have to either lower the value of the vouchers or stop issuing them for a prolonged period of time. I would estimate we're probably going to stop issuing vouchers for a 1 or 2 month period. Since I am not the federal government and I cannot go over what money I have, and the Chinese will not lend me any money, your approval of my budget request will put food into the mouths of City of Bellevue citizens. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from the council? Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to thank the Ministerial Alliance and you, Mr. Huck, for the service to those in our community who are sometimes in need of service, and they come when they are desperate oftentimes.
Thank you.
We appreciate the service. And with that, I would make a motion to approve $3,300 to provide from the Community Betterment Fund to the Ministerial Alliance for the assistance of the food pantry.
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
Thank you.
All voted yes.
Thank you, Mr. Huck. Item 6, liquor license. 6A, Willow Springs Bottling Company doing business as Cornhusker Beverage Mart. Application for a special designated liquor license to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits at a fundraiser reception for the Bellevue East High School Booster Club. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jim Subject. I've been the manager of the Cornhusker Beverage Mart for 43 years. We do a lot of fundraisers with a lot of different organizations, whether they are for profit or not for profit. This one happens to be a fundraiser for the Booster Club for Bellevue East High School, and they're trying to raise some funds for equipment for their school. And they're having a booster dinner, and I think they're going to have some raffle auction items, and that's about it. But do it as a legal event, we need a one-day designated license.
Okay, Mr. Subject, I'm going to open for public hearing now at this time. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Wishes of the council. Councilwoman Sanyuk.
Motion to recommend approval to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for a special designated liquor license for Willow Springs Bottling Company doing business as Cornhusker Beverage Mart to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits at a fundraiser reception for the Bellevue East High School Booster Club from 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. on August 30th, 2014 at the Bellevue University Student Center.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 6B, St. Mary's School, application for special designated liquor license to sell beer and wine at a fundraiser for the school.
Hi, I'm Brian Miller with St. Mary's School in Bellevue, and we're having our second annual trivia night in October, and just trying to get a one-day liquor license for it.
Thank you. I'll now ask for a public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Wishes of the council. Councilwoman Sanyuk.
Motion to recommend approval to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for a special designated liquor license for St. Mary's School to sell beer and wine at a fundraiser for the school from 5 p.m. until 11 p.m. on October 17th, 2014 at 903 West Mission Ave in Bellevue.
Second.
Second by Mr. Preister. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 6C, Fraternal Order of Eagles, number 3912, application for special designated liquor license to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits in the parking lot behind the club. Good evening.
Hello, I'm Vicki Smith. I'm the club manager for the Bellevue Eagles, and I'm here asking for a special designated liquor license for Saturday, September 6th. That is open to the public, and it's probably one of our biggest membership drives that we have. This will be our third annual one.
Thank you. I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to recommend to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission approval of the application of the Fraternal Order of Eagles number 3212 for a special designated liquor license to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits in the parking lot behind the club at 209 West Mission Avenue from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. on September 6, 2014.
Second.
Second by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 6D, Moonstruck Meadery LLC, 6D1, application for Class K catering liquor license in addition to the Class Y 095403 liquor license.
My name is Brian Schluter, owner of Moonstruck Meadery, and we have requested that we have a catering license because of we have a certain restriction for the farm winery license right now, which is a Class Y. They only restrict you to, well, they limit you to 6 SDLs, special designated licenses that you can apply for. So we're going to the K designation for the catering so that we can further have more SDLs and permit us to go ahead and have events and sales off-site.
Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I noticed in the application that the planning department had a concern with the handicap access. When I drove by today, it looked like there's a temporary one in there. Can you comment on that handicap ramp?
Yeah, I was addressing just the K license, but also with the other request that's in addition to this is the patio, 21 by 7 foot patio. And I do have the approval from the city department for planning with the permit and so forth to have that authorized. And I've had Mike go ahead and take a look at the actual railing system that's put in place for that, and we've built everything to spec.
Okay,
So,
great.
yes,
Thank
sir.
you for taking care of it.
Thank you, sir.
I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the council? Mr. Preister?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to recommend to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission approval of the application for a Class K catering license, liquor license, in addition to the current Class Y liquor license at 1006 West 24th Avenue in Bellevue of Moonstruck Meadery, LLC.
We have a second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. We'll now go into 6D2. You can stay up here if you might. We're going to both done at the same time. Application for the addition of approximately 21 by 7 outdoor area. Ms. Sanyuk.
Motion to,
Public hearing.
Well, I thought
Oh,
maybe
I'm
you had a
sorry.
question or a
Oh, no,
statement
I'm sorry,
first.
I'm
No,
sorry.
okay. So I'll go ahead and open for public hearing. If there are no questions, anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Ms. Sanyuk.
motion to recommend approval to the Nebraska Control Liquor License for an application for the addition of an approximately 21 by 7 outdoor area to the west of the currently licensed area at 2221 Madison Street.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
6E, Mud Bugs LLC, application for 6 special designated liquor license. Is there anyone here from Mud Bugs this evening?
He knew.
Okay. No. I see none. I'll go ahead and open for public hearing. Anyone wanting to speak on item 6E, please do so at this time. See none. I'll close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the council? Mr. Carmichael.
I'd like to recommend approval to the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission for the application for 6 specially designated liquor licenses to sell beer, wine, and distilled spirits on July 26th, August 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, 2014, from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the parking lot of the restaurant at 101 West Mission Avenue.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sanyuk. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 7, ordinance for adoption, third reading, none. Item 8, ordinance for public hearing, second reading, none. Item 9, ordinance for introduction, first reading. 9A, ordinance number 3772. Kay, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3772, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619, by changing the zone classification of land located at or about 25th Street between Rose Lane Road and Virginia Street, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. The second reading and the public hearing on ordinance number 3772 will be July 28th. 9B, ordinance number 3773. Kay, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3773, an ordinance to amend Section 5.17, ordinance number 3619, the Bellevue zoning ordinance, relating to planned unit developments, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. The second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 3773 will also be July 28th. 9C, ordinance number 3774. Kay, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3774, an ordinance to amend Section 2.22, ordinance number 3619, Bellevue zoning ordinance, relating to definitions, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Second reading and public hearing on ordinance number 3774 will also be July 28th. 9D, ordinance number 3775. Kate, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3775, an ordinance to amend section 9.09, ordinance number 3619, Bellevue zoning ordinance, relating to fences, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. The second reading and public hearing on 3775 will also be July 28th. 9E, ordinance number 3776. Kate, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3776, an ordinance to amend section 5.12, ordinance number 3619, the Bellevue zoning ordinance, relating to the RG 50 general residential zoning district, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, and to provide an effective date of the ordinance.
Thank you. Second reading and public hearing for ordinance number 3776, also July 28th. 9F, ordinance number 3777. Kate, could you please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 3777, an ordinance to amend section 7-24, ordinance number 3704, subdivision ordinance, relating to the Park Development Fund, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. And the second reading and public hearing also on July 28th for ordinance number 3777. Item 10, public hearing on matters other than ordinance. 10A, conditional use permit for a 95-foot monopole communication tower. Is there someone here on this item?
Hi there, I'm Sam Mandolfo, 2611 South 117th Street, Omaha, on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Preister?
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, good to see you again.
Nice
under
seeing
other
you, Don.
circumstances.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Has been.
Too long.
My question for you is, this is basically a cell tower, a wireless communication tower that's going to be erected, right?
Yes, sir. We have a tenant, and we're talking to 2 other possible tenants to go on there. It's, as a matter of fact, the property owner, Verizon's going to be the first tenant up there, and the property owner has a Verizon phone, and she's complaining because it doesn't work very well, and we told her we'd fix it for her. So we're going to try and fix it for her.
Okay, basically it should help some communications for some people.
They had submitted a plot plan showing the coverage areas. It's going to pick up everything to the east, down to the river, and then down to the south. And they just did a new one at 25th and Cornhusker. It's going to pick up a lot of the stuff to the north. So this is primarily east and south and west is where they're picking up coverage. And then, of course, as the interstate gets completed through there, they'll be picking up that pass-through traffic, which again is critical. You know, people, for whatever reasons, they think they can drive anywhere and use their phone, especially if they're on the interstate.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the council? I'll go ahead and open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. As I see none, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the conditional use permit for a 190-foot monopole communication tower.
Second.
We have a
Okay,
second by,
Footage, it's 195.
the footage is 195 feet, right?
For a 195-foot monopole, yes.
And
I need the
second,
address.
you also need the address on there. Please.
At 15455 Highway 75 South.
Thank you. And the second was made by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 10B, public hearing on the proposed 2014-2018 consolidated plan and the 2014 action plan. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on behalf of 10B? Welcome.
Abby Highland, the CDBG specialist. Just tonight is the public hearing for our proposed consolidated plan and action plan. The consolidated plan outlines the priorities and goals for the next 5 years to address needs in Bellevue, and then the action plan outlines the projects that will address those priorities and those goals. This year we have 3 projects totaling for a total of $307,532. The 3 projects include a splash pad for Hastings Banner Park, a business loan program we are working with the chamber on, and then program administration. And then the final vote will be at the next council meeting on July 28th.
Mr. Preister.
Abby, I like the use of the funds for the sidewalks and for the splash pad. My question is, why is the city getting into a loan program and essentially becoming a banker for people?
Well, we had one previously, so with the state funding, we're just looking for ways to encourage businesses to locate in Bellevue and hopefully provide more jobs for those low and moderate income individuals. Just looking for, more creative ways, and by doing a loan program and creating that revolving loan fund, any money coming back can then be put back into the program, and we just continually reuse those funds.
Okay, so it is, as you say, a revolving loan, so it comes back in and can go back out, and it's to enhance job development as well.
Yes.
That's how it qualifies for the CDBG funding.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for your work on it.
Thank you, Abby. I'll go ahead and open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on item 10B, please do so at this time.
Dan Banky. I had the privilege of being on the committee this year on an unexpired appointment, and I really appreciated that. I thought Abby did a great job under the circumstances that she was in. I've had to do these with different communities before. This is the first time I've been in a community where no other one other than the city came forward with proposals. And I think that's a real challenge. We need to do something to try to take care of that. If you saw the World Herald on Sunday, there was actually an article in there about Blue Planet. Blue Planet is a business here in Bellevue that is getting some support from the Greater Omaha Community Development Organization. So I guess I would just encourage you as representatives to do whatever you can to try to support with the city to get community involvement, because we have lots of needs in this community, especially for our youth. And if there's things that we can do, we need to encourage for-profit and not-for-profit organizations to come forward, rather than Abby having to wait and actually trying to keep us from losing those dollars. Because if we don't commit them, we lose them, and we probably lose them for the following year. So,
Thank you very much. And I think, Mr. Burks, do you have a few words to say about Blue Planet?
Mr. Banky, thank you for your comment. It was indeed the city of Bellevue that attracted Blue Planet to Bellevue. We did some zoning issues and corrected those, and we're happy to see that they're growing. And even though the article in the paper implied that the Greater Omaha Chamber was doing the economic development work for them, the city of Bellevue was the initial party responsible for getting them a place and attracting them to Bellevue.
If I could just comment, and I understand that part. I guess my point would be is that one of the 3 areas that we can do is that actually we can support them since they're going to hire employees. We could also have done that under our CDBG if they would have hired low-income employees.
At that time, they were working under the 2 or 3 employees that two owners that they have. So we're still able to help them if they, the chamber has reached out to them to help them as well.
Good.
So,
and we need to do more of that.
you bet.
Thank you, Mr. Vinke. Ms. Sanyuk.
And Mr. Banky, I just want to say thank you for stepping up and filling that position. That was needed. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Is there others that would like to speak on this item? Please do so at this time. See none, I'll close the public hearing. Moving on to item number 11, resolutions. 11A, resolution number 2014-20, reaffirming participation in the Nebraska Community Energy Allegiance Interlocal Cooperation Agreement, and appointing one person to serve as a director on the initial board of directors and designating one person to serve as the city's initial voting delegate at the annual meeting. Mr. Burks, would you like to comment on this item?
This is just appointing the director to the board representing each entity. I would like to be considered for it, but I didn't want to assume that I would be, so we left the line blank on the resolution. So whatever the council decides, it'd be fine with me, though.
Any comments from the council? Mr. Carmichael.
Larry, you've been working on this thing for a while now, and you are completely cognizant about the ins and outs and what's going on with the process. I would like to make a motion that Larry be appointed as our representative for this organization.
Second.
Second by Mr. Preister. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes. May I ask for a point of clarification? Was your motion just to put Larry's name in that resolution, or putting it in that resolution, did it include approving the resolution?
It was my intent to approve the resolution with Larry as the representative.
I was just going to suggest, which I've done to the mayor, to actually do a separate motion to approve the resolution with Larry as the appointee.
All right.
So we need another motion? Ms. Sanyuk.
Motion to approve resolution number 2014-20 with Mr. Larry Burks designated as the person to serve as the city's initial voting delegate.
Second.
And
Second.
Board of Directors.
And Board of Directors, and on the Board of Directors.
Motion by Ms. Sanyuk, second by Mr. Preister. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Number 12, current business. 12A, B, and C is under consent agenda. 12D, ratification of contract with MAXC LLC for 25th Street Emergency Bridge Repair between Linwood Drive and Town Center Drive, and a waiver of the bidding requirements. Mr. Preister.
I move to approve the ratification of the contract with MAXC LLC for 25th Street Emergency Bridge Repair between Linwood Drive and Town Center Drive, and waiver of the bidding requirements.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12D, approval and authorize for the mayor to sign purchase agreement for the purchase of playground equipment for Washington Park from Playcraft Systems in the amount of $46,237.65. Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to recommend approval of the authorization for the mayor to sign purchase agreement for the purchase of playground equipment for the Washington Park for Playcraft Systems in the amount of $46,237.65.
Second.
Second by Mr. Knutson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12F, approval of amendment to the original proposal between GEO Consulting Group, Inc. and the City of Bellevue for the additional design service provided on the 42nd Street and Valley View Storm Sewer Improvement Project. Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the amendment to the original proposal between JEO Consulting Group, Inc. and the City of Bellevue for additional design services provided on the 42nd Street and Valley View Storm Sewer Improvement Project.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sanyuk. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12G, approval of contract with Anderson Excavating for the demolition of the structures at 616 South 28th Street in the amount of $64,200. Mr. Knutson.
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the contract with Anderson Excavating for the demolition of the structures at 7616 South 28th Street in the amount of $64,200.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Christensen is here, and I would just like to ask him a question as the Chief Building Inspector. Has anything changed since the last council meeting in terms of any information about renovating, saving this building by the current owner or any potential future owner that has met all requirements?
No, no one's come forward at all.
Okay. And if we do this demolition, there's a fence that goes around part of the property. You could still get construction equipment, but it's a pretty nice fence. It would separate and kind of form a protective barrier. Is that fence going to stay?
I believe they'll be able to work around that, and I'll work with Anderson Excavation to try to save that.
Okay, I think it would be helpful, just protection and keeping things from the street out if that could be done. I'm not requiring it, but I think it would be helpful.
I believe they have room to manipulate their equipment around so that we can keep that fence.
Okay. All right. Thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you.
The other question I'm wondering about is the fund that we use. And currently, we have a 2-year budget now, and so this would exhaust our current year's budget on all demolitions. So we could do no more, but because we've done a biennium budget, we can also call into the future year's budget on this. I'd rather not do that, though, so I don't know if we've identified a fund, one thing, and then if we take it out of the budget, which I think is most appropriate, but we go a little over that. So I would think first we expend the budget, use up the $60,000 that's in the budget. Anything over that would come out of the community betterment. And then we start fresh. We haven't over budgeted yet. But I would ask and see from legal counsel the appropriateness and how you might recommend we handle that.
I think the way you propose would be fine to do. I don't believe the contract identifies any particular budget.
Right.
But if you do want to go that route and exhaust the current budget and extend it into next year's community betterment, I don't think there's a problem with that.
Okay. Mr. Christensen, any
Mike has any
thoughts?
other suggestions?
Okay.
Well, we do have one other demolition that was already approved on 26th Street, and that one was about $9,600, I believe. So if we could use the betterment fund for that too, because that's going to the one on 28th Street is going to exceed the amount that was budgeted for this fiscal year by $44,000, roughly $5,000, and then plus we have the one on 26th Street for $9,600.
Okay, so the 60,000 is already being eaten into by the prior ones, you're saying? So
Correct.
we don't really have full 60. We've used part of it already.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What concerns me is that we're going to limit Mike now for the remainder of that 2-year cycle with no funds in his budget available if and when demolitions come up. I would be more akin to evaluating the Community Betterment Fund for the large project and utilizing his budget for the standard demolitions that occur for single-family dwellings and things like that.
Makes sense.
He's gonna have still 60,000 for next year.
Correct.
It's 60,000 each year, so I agree with Don as far as, you know, if we wanna use the 60,000 that we have budgeted for this year and then do the rest out of community betterment, I have no problem with that. That'll still leave him 60,000 for next year to work with.
Mike, do you have some, I know we've got a lot of houses, because I know in Ward 5 especially, there are several that I've talked to you about, that we don't have condemned and we don't have bids out for. what are you looking at for the rest of this year in terms of how many you can do?
Oh, we could easily take down 6 more houses, and go through that 60,000. But with no funds available, we've just been securing the properties and, keeping the general public out of them.
And there are neighbors around those houses that have been waiting about as long as these.
Correct.
Okay. I tend to like my original thought, but I like what Councilman Carmichael is saying, because I don't want to limit you to being able to not do some of those as soon as we can do it for the safety of the community. So if you wanted to make a motion to include all of it from the community betterment, I would support that.
I would put that in a motion.
So we've had a motion and a second, we're in discussion. So,
So then, Mr. Carmichael's so we have a motion to approve the contract with the second.
Right.
Now, Mr. Carmichael has made a motion to pay for that demolition out of community
Out of the
betterment.
Community
funds.
Betterment Fund.
And then that will need a second and a vote before we vote on the
Second.
approval.
so we have the motion by Mr. Carmichael, second by Mr. Preister. Any discussion on that? See none, please vote. Okay, did you get all of that?
I think so.
Okay,
All voted yes.
thank you. And now we need a vote on the original. Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 12H, approval of service agreement with hazardous waste experts for the disposal of old evidence processing chemicals at the cost of $2,499.98. Ms. Sanyuk.
Motion to approve the service agreement with hazardous waste experts for the disposal of old evidence processing chemicals at a cost of $2,499.98.
Second.
Second by Mr. Knutson. Discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12I, approval of software license agreement for law enforcement field training application, software for field training officers program at a cost of $2,620. Mr. Knutson.
I'll make a motion, we approve the software license agreement for the law enforcement training, field training application, the amount of $2,620.
Second.
Second by Ms. Sanyuk. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 12J, approval of the operation response of automatic aid for service between Omaha Fire Department and the Bellevue Fire Department. Mr. Knutson.
I'll make a motion, we approve the operational response of automatic aid for service between Omaha Fire and Bellevue Fire.
Second.
Second by Mr. Preister. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 13, public request to be heard. Any members of the public addressing the council shall abide by council policy resolution number 35 regarding the principles of conduct and decorum, which states any statement made during city council meetings by the mayor, members of the city council, city officials and employees, or members of the general public shall not involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on individuals, regardless whether of the individual so attacked as an elected official, a city official, or employee or member of the general public, and City Code Section 2-68 regarding the manner of addressing the council. Copies of the aforementioned rules are posted outside the council chambers. Speakers shall limit their presentation to 5 minutes. Welcome.
John, what are you doing? I'm not running for office, John. Okay, before I start the clock, a couple pictures to hand out for each of you. Run over my time limit.
If you, we could pass them down.
My name is John Ott. Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, members of the public. My name is John Ott. I live at 1602 Elm Street. I've lived in Bellevue since 1964. Used to sit in one of those chairs up there and listen to the same concerns that you folks are, so thanks for your service. Your pay is better than it was when I was there, but that's okay. I'm here to voice my concern about the diagonal parking on Franklin Street. While I've not been a fan of that arrangement since it was implemented, and I've not heard anybody that thought it was a good idea, to be honest with you, I decided it was time to voice my concerns to you, the safety of citizens of Bellevue. On numerous occasions, I've noticed oversized vehicles parked diagonally encroaching into the traffic lanes. You have a picture of one of those pickups parked down in front of the old school building. The picture I have shows an example of this. When this picture was taken, the car in front of me had to stop because of oncoming traffic. As you can see, there's a double yellow line to the left of the pickup, which means anybody going to the north behind that vehicle has to either stop and wait for the cops to come move the vehicle or violate the law, and I don't think that's our intent. This is unnecessary for that to have happen. Many pickups and SUVs also have trailer hitches as they park from there further to the north along the park. Those vehicles extend right next to the traffic lane, and people driving along aren't always that observant, but a trailer hitch would really tear up the side of a vehicle pretty fast. With regular-sized vehicles, many of the parking spaces are very cramped and tight, and you see this in the second picture that I gave you where there's multiple vehicles. They're parked up, and that pickup that I talked about earlier was parked legally. It was up against the curb, but still extending out into the traffic lane. And it was legally because there's no restriction as to what they can and can't do. Parallel parking would eliminate that. The vehicles along the side of the park, in the second picture where they're numerous, they're right out to the traffic lane. The issue there is the traffic lane's very tight. People coming out of the park, kids playing in the park, go around the vehicle. They're always not observant as you'd like them to be. But on this past Saturday during the farmer's market, people were in, bought things at the market, which you hope they'd do, came out and walked right out into the traffic lane, opened up the trunk and stood in the traffic lane putting things in the trunk of the car. I had to stop. I don't think it's necessary, folks. We have large fire, and these vehicles are all legal. It does say small and mid-sized vehicles, but who's to interpret that? As compared to what? There are designations out there, but compared to a truck, they're all small. We have fire rescue squads. Fire engines, rescue squads come out, travel. They have to maneuver around these vehicles. That's not necessary. I've spoken with fire chief. The assistant fire chief showed them a picture of the truck. They said, we have the same issues. I called the fire chief, or the police chief, with the picture, took it down to him. He said, John, I agree. My hands are tied. Folks, these are the people that you hire to provide safety for this community. And they have a concern about the safety of some of the parking, and you're not willing to listen to them? If they can't make the decision as to what's safe and what isn't, who can? The answer is you. You can make a difference. You can make the change. Do it. It's the right thing to do. Vehicles too close to the traffic lane, driving along, people walking out in the traffic lane. Pickups too large. To enter Franklin Street from the side streets. Vehicles parked diagonally, you got to creep clear out into the traffic lane to see by before you pull out. And a real issue for me is as I look at the senior center, these folks don't have the best reflexes, and if they have to sneak out, I have to sneak out, and I'm a senior center citizen, but I don't have quite the problem that some of them do in driving. But if they have to sneak out there, that's a concern. You ought to be concerned about it also. I think Mr. Roberts would agree, the primary function of our streets is for the movement of traffic. In order to preserve primary functions, it's important to maintain proper control, location, and type of parking allowed. Because traffic flow has a priority, parking, if necessary, should not negatively impact traffic flow or promote unsafe conditions. And I think they're doing it. Angled parking does increase the number of parking spots by 2.5 per parallel. From Mission Street up to 21st Street, the streets are wider. Angled parking is a little easier in there, but still not a good idea, I don't think. From there up past the park, it narrows down, but you still allow angled parking in there. You've lost the width of the street up. And then when you get past the park, it all narrows down to where it's parallel on both sides. On the west side of the street, it's a straight shot all the way down from Harvell Drive all the way down. So some places it's angled parking, some places it's parallel. Somehow it needs to be fixed. If more parking is needed, purchase some land. There's a place just to the south there by the old school building that's been vacant for a long time. Have you looked at buying any of that? You just sold the Course Lab property. You sold a couple parcels with 360. You have money. By the church, on the north side of the church, you parked, paved the area from the street up to the sidewalk. You could do the same thing on the south side of the park. There's space available. I checked it today. I've checked it yesterday. I've been in Bellevue since '64. Downtown Bellevue was vibrant then. A lot of businesses, and I don't recall parking ever being a problem. We were glad to be there. Right now, it's time for you to do the right thing before somebody gets hurt. You have two chiefs that have a concern. Listen to them. Do away with the diagonal parking. The experiment has too many downsizes. I provided with a couple options. Take some action and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Chuck. If I might, I'd like to follow on because my comment is directly related to this. Go ahead. Thank you, sir.
John was over 5 minutes, maybe you can do this.
I'm going to be short and sweet because I don't have handouts, so I'll be in and out. This is a learning experience because I've never been here before, so. No, I ran into John Saturday and he mentioned this and I said, amen. I live at 20th and Bluff. My sister lives at 20th and Warren. So 20th Street is my ingress egress when I leave and go anyplace. Since the advent of the diagonal parking, it's been a son of a bitch. When there is an event at the Presbyterian Church, the old Presbyterian Church, and or the Washington Park. Last fall, there was an event simultaneously on a Saturday, and there was a Suburban and an Expedition parked there on the east side in close proximity to 20th Street, from 19th to 20th and then 20th to 21st. To get out into traffic, you literally had to creep, and I put the nose of my car into the traffic lane to get past those two obstructions visually to see what was coming. And it hadn't improved. Another time this year, there was an event at Washington Park, and as John said, there's a sign there that says small and compact cars. This one was a Silverado crew cab, and it had a topper on it, and so he was way out in it. And there was oncoming traffic going to the south. I literally had to stop to avoid an accident. I was either going to hit a parked car or hit an oncoming car because we were all approaching the same neck point. Today, there was an Alphabet daycare van. There was a commercial van, I'm going to say like a 5 or 6 row van that was sitting there right in front of this small and subcompact sign. Nobody does anything, and he was there for about an hour and a half, and he was way out into the traffic lane. I don't know. I've asked 2 police officers that were just what I'm gonna call the regular vehicle patrol officers, I don't know the proper name for them, to look at it. They said they can't do anything. There were no tickets and/or towing done to these, what I consider improperly parked vehicles. You've got a safety problem there, and for me, it isn't bad unless there's something happening at Washington, and especially when you have concurrent events at Washington and the Old Presbyterian Church. And I guess I would like to say, I would like you to look at it and see what you can do. The other thing is, from 20th Street to 21st, you have a tree line there. There's literally a wall. It's solid, and then one of them has a canopy that goes over it. When you have any big vehicles in there, you have no line of sight into the oncoming traffic that is coming north. And I defy anybody to drive up there, look at it, and say this is a safe condition. Because I looked at it again tonight, and you have 3 small signs there between 19th and 20th, and I mean, they're small. People, you know, most of the time aren't gonna read them, and if they do, they disregard them. And I am asking for some help. Before, it wasn't a problem when you had the parallel parking, but now with what you have, where you really have to creep out in the traffic, if somebody is going over the speed limit, you're gonna have one heck of a problem there. With that, I say thank you.
Thank you. Kay, did he state his name? I'm sorry, sir, could you state your name for the record?
I'm incognito. I wrote it down, Lynn Patrick. And, you know, we've been a resident of Bellevue since '46, so we're been here a long, long time.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you.
I hope I'm giving the same courtesy John had if he goes over 5 minutes. Chuck Frederick, 1511 Madison Street. First thing I want to talk about is splash pads. I think it's nice that West Bellevue is getting a splash pad. They seem, a lot of times they feel up there that they're not part of Bellevue. But in the same token, I believe there's enough community money right now to have that second splash pad at Everett Park that Mr. Babbitt has been working on. We know he has $58,000. The splash pad up in northwest Bellevue is grant money, and so there's no reason that we can't have that second one started at the same time as the first one. It's kind of causing a rift between West Bellevue and the rest of Bellevue because they feel they're being cheated because they don't have one in the central part. So that certainly is one area that I think next meeting is you're going to be talking about this, but I just wanted to mention that right now. There's no reason we can't have both splash pads. The other thing, when I was up to St. Bernadette's Sunday, one of the ladies talked to me about a library drop-off that was at St. Bernadette's, but then they redid the driveway and they took it out, and she tried to get it, asked to have it put back in. At first she was told by somebody at the city that the priest up there didn't want it, and that was not true. Then when she talked to somebody else, she found out that they didn't have the money for it. Well, having one library drop-off up there saves a lot of people a lot of time going back and forth. It can't be that costly. You know, library, just give the library some extra money, maybe out of community money fund also, in order to do that. But that's something that I think is a no-brainer too. The other thing is that I was at the farmer's market on Saturday, and I parallel parked. I was on the west side of the street, so that was kind of easy for me. But when I was there, I talked to one of the vendors, and she was trying to find out where her $180, where it was spent. And she didn't know, and she'd called the person who was in charge supposedly, and no response back. And I can't see in the financials where that money is. And so I'm just kind of curious, who has that money and where is it being spent? The other thing is that I noticed in the paper, and you've been talking about having a slogan or a kind of a branding for the city of Bellevue. And so I know that names are being submitted. I have one I want to submit, but what I did is I stole part of Pete Ricketts' his slogan. His was bold and bald, and of course I can't use that because I still have my hair. But mine is bold and old. So that's been my campaign. But I think that if you think about that, that is not a bad branding for the city of Bellevue, bold and old. But of course, obviously, you have to do some bold things in order to make it true. But to me, that sounds pretty good. I think it should be. You don't have to hire a special bunch of people to give us some branding. I think we have enough people here in Bellevue that have enough ideas and are creative enough to come up with some ideas. I suggest maybe a contest. And if you did use mine, if there's a dollar amount involved, I'll donate that to if I win. But anyway, bold and old, I'd like to have that on the record. The other thing is that a couple weeks ago, Eugene Curtin wrote a article about the fire department, and it's on my website too, by the way, if you want to take a look at it. But I want to kind of elaborate on some of the things he pointed out. The one thing he talked about but didn't mention really about the $540,000 that I've been asking about where it's been, and the fire chief came up last meeting and said collected about 2%. Well, I want to have an actual figure, how much was collected of that, and that wasn't mentioned in the article at all about only collecting at the maximum $10,800 out of $540,000. The other thing was in the article was that like I am a special friend of Pat Shannon, who did the billing before. Should have never been taken away from it, but he doesn't do it anymore. But I am a good friend of Pat Shannon, but I think everybody in the city of Bellevue should be a good friend of Pat Shannon because he was collecting about $70,000 a month for the city of Bellevue when they took it away from him. The other thing that at the end of the article, it doesn't tell at all where the money that the fire department has collected, where is it? Where does it go? Is it in a separate bank account? Hopefully not. It should be going into the general fund, but way back it used to be a separate category showing how much money was there. So I like to have some proof of where this money is and how much and how it's being spent, because we need some accountability. And yeah, I think I did in less than 5 minutes, didn't I?
No,
Huh?
you're over.
I'm over.
by
Well,
a
thank
couple
you for
minutes.
letting me finish. Okay, thanks a lot.
Are there others that would like to speak?
My name's Jim Modry, 1207 Rebecca Court. Just a couple things. Chuck mentioned financial statements a little bit, and I think we've lost maybe a little accountability or transparency in our financial statements over the years. The old financial statements, I know October 2010, that's going back a little bit, but looking through that, there's a page, cash and equivalents, which broke out separately every individual account, bank account where funds went and were at. And one of those was for the emergency medical services. Now, there's just kind of a big lump sum in there. I don't know why we went away from that, listing those things out in that manner, but I think that would help maybe start to answer a few of the questions that have been going around surrounding, where the funds are at and what they're being used for, and some of those questions regarding those ambulance billings. you know, it's been an item of interest for a while. And just recently here, we started to get a little bit of information come out about the $540,000 that, you know, had accrued, that we hired a collection agency to help us with. And I think, you know, there are some other things that maybe need to be looked at or answered. How did we get to that state of that much backlog? Are we using some best practices to go after collections? I know quite a bit about HIPAA. My company deals in it quite a bit. You know, one example, notice of privacy practices, statement, you know, you get when you go to the doctor or whatever, other places. Are we mailing those out, or are we giving them out in person? You know, if we're mailing them out, that costs extra money to the city. And billing, are we doing that in a manner that will get the most money back to the city? For example, if someone was transported because of an automobile accident, or are people trained to get the information on the automobile insurance company and that information so that we can get 100% of that billing back instead of 50% or, you know, whatever Medicaid or medical insurances allow. So some of those things need to be looked at. I know with facts and figures, you can slice and dice them any way you want to show the picture you want to show. You can pick the periods of time you want that are most advantageous to you, or what have you. So it needs to be dug into. I think we should look at an audit by an independent outside agency to look into some of these things for the good of the citizens of Bellevue and our money. Are we doing the best that we can for our citizens? That's all I have. Thank you.
My name's Steve Draper. I live at 9807 South 24th Street in Bellevue, and I've lived here since 1985. Before I start, I'd request from the council that I be allotted 10 minutes to speak, if you're willing to vote on that.
Do we have a motion from the council? See none, it dies. We do not have a motion. Sorry, Mr. Draper. So we have 5 minutes.
Okay. If I put this on the regular agenda and request in advance, can I get more than 5 minutes? Is that allowed under the rules? Is that what I need to do if I need more than 5 minutes?
Absolutely, and perhaps it doesn't have to go on the agenda if that's something that we can help you with.
Okay, I'll do the
Let's
best
review
I can
that.
here today. I sent email to each of the members of the city council about what I was going to be talking about. I don't know if any of you read or received that. Maybe some of you did and didn't. I wanted to talk specifically on Section 2-68, which is called, that you read at the beginning, manner of addressing the council, and also on the policy resolution 35, principles of conduct and decorum. And to start with, I want to go to the minutes of last city council meeting. And in there, Miss Lori Bonner spoke, and she asked some specific questions about fireworks at that meeting. And at that meeting, the city attorney, Patrick Sullivan, said that he could answer her questions in about 3 minutes after the meeting was over. And I would suggest that, you know, while that may have helped her personally, you know, I would have liked to know the answers to those same questions that she asked. And I'm sure other people in the public would have liked to know what the answers were to those questions instead of having to go privately to a member of the council or the city attorney to get those questions. And if the city attorney could do that in 3 minutes, why not do it right then and there, you know, in a public forum? That's why we have these meetings, is so the public can be informed of things. And if you go and look at Section 2-68, it talks about that. And it says, any question asked of a council member or member of the staff may be directed by the council, if deemed relevant, to the appropriate staff member, and said staff member will bring the matter back to the council as a regular agenda item when necessary. So, and I've listened each week when we have these times like this. And every time, there are people that ask questions. And I can't recall a single time that the council says, okay, yes, let's get an answer to that. And so in such department would like you to come back to city council and give us an answer to that. That's what should be happening as a result of these public. And in my view, the mayor should, right then and there, when someone comes up and asks a question, should say, assign someone to take that as an action item and bring it back and answer it to the public's satisfaction, rather than just, you sit and watch on YouTube the proceedings of this council meeting, which anyone in the public can do. In fact, if you go to YouTube and look on a specific date, you'll find how many times that session has been looked at by the public. I don't know if you're aware of that. But in any case, I'm asking, just as Mr. Ott asked, that you as the council do your job that you've been elected to do. And that's one of the functions that's your responsibility that you've been negligent on, that you have not been doing. You've not been answering these questions, assigning people and bringing them back and answering in a public forum to where everyone can get answers to those questions. Then also, as I was reading Section 268, I can understand why someone would have some reticence about coming up here like I do. Because I think some people are scared that if they go over their 5 minutes, that someone on the council is going to ask them to be escorted out. Or if they mention a name of someone on the council, that someone's going to get upset and send them out. And I'm going to go right here in the last part of Section 2-68. It says, all remarks shall be addressed to a council as a whole and not to any member thereof. And I understand that. But then the very next sentence says, any question asked of a council member. How can a question have been asked of a council member if it says in the sentence before that they're not allowed to do that? So I'm telling you that this section is ambiguous. It needs to be revised or rewritten or made more clear, because it gives the impression here that there are times when there are specific members of the council or staff that a question could be directed to. So that's my point on that. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about was the Policy Resolution 35, Principles of Conduct and Decorum. And I've highlighted a couple of just 2 or 3 sentences that kind of stuck out to me on here. And first of all, in the very first paragraph, it says, if any portion of these rules of conduct and decorum are found to be conflict with any city ordinance or state law, the provisions of city ordinance or state law shall be followed. And to me, free speech is what I'm referring to, and that is our state constitution entitles us to have free speech. And there are times when you're stepping on people's toes and saying, no, you can't have free speech in this forum. You can't say what you want to say, or we may escort you out. We have 2 former members of the city council here today. And I think it's reprehensible that any former member of the city council will be escorted from this room by the police chief. That just reflects poorly on the city and on every one of you, regardless of what you think your reasons are for doing it. Then going down to subparagraph A, specifically use the words, provide fair and equal treatment for all persons in matters coming before the city council. And I would tell you right now, you need to change that sentence. We can oftentimes be fair, but not equal. We can also be equal and unfair, But very rarely are we fair and equal both at the same time. And I see a puzzled look on one of the council person's face. And I'll give you an example. And this, it's a simple example, but for example, if my 3-year-old has taken something out of the refrigerator without permission, and my teenager has taken something out of the refrigerator with permission, to do equal treatment for them would be have them both stand in the corner. Well, that wouldn't be fair, not to a teenager, but it might be fair for my 3-year-old. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, is that I think you should change it to be fair and remove the equal from that, because fair is what we want to do. Then the next paragraph says, members of the general public shall not involve personal, impertinent, or slanderous attacks on an individual. And that is the phrase that I think some members of this council have used when someone's name is mentioned that's on the council. They have taken personal umbrage to something. And that's a matter of personal opinion. I think you should defer to letting people have free speech and have this be a friendly forum, not a contentious one, not one where people are at odds with each other, not one where people are afraid to come up here and talk. People should want to come up here and talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Severson, would you like to come to the microphone, please? I see.
I want to come up here and talk. The two previous.
Could you state your name,
Richard
please?
Severson, Finance Director, City of Bellevue. The two previous speakers came up here, and I know they're candidates, but that should not excuse them from making some of those comments about the financials of the city. We produce high-quality financials, and they said that rescue fees aren't noted on those financials. We produce 2 sets of financials each month. Council, you receive them, and they're available to the public. The first one clearly shows rescue fees. If anyone, well, if they can read or would read them, they could see that those rescue fees are clearly stated, and they do go into the general fund to lower the tax levy on the citizens. The second one is about a 60-page document that details all capital projects, any large items for the city. So I'm not aware that that level of detail was ever produced by anyone previously in the city. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that anyone watching the council knows that they can come down here and get those statements, and they can look for themselves, and they will find all the financial information that they should need to see how the city's doing. And so it took everything I could muster. I noticed you allowed invectives earlier in this in the speaker's podium, but took everything I had not to partake and lower myself to that. So anyway, I hope that people will come down and take a look at those financials, and I will personally point out the fire rescue fee line for them if they'd like to see those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Severson. Are there others that would like to speak at this time? I see none. I'll close the public hearing. Move to adjournment.
Motion to approve, or motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Severson, second by Ms. Sanyuk. Any discussion? By Mr. Knudsen.
Yeah.
Motion by Mr.
I like
Knudsen,
that.
second by Ms. Sanyuk. Please vote.